I'm about to restore everything the enemy stole from you. Not some of it, not the parts that were easy to recover, not a partial return that leaves the most significant losses still unaddressed. Everything, every year that was taken, every opportunity that was stolen before it could fully materialize, every relationship that was destroyed by something that was never supposed to happen, every dream that was buried under the weight of a season you never should have had to walk through alone. Every piece of yourself that got lost in the hardest chapters, I am bringing it back. Not as a replica of what was lost, not as a lesser substitute that approximates what you had, but as a restoration that is so complete and so specific and so personally calibrated to your story that when it arrives you will know, beyond any shadow of doubt, that it came from me. That is the promise I am making to you today, and I do not make promises I do not keep. My dear child, I need to start by addressing something that I know has been sitting in you, a quiet but persistent grief over the things that feel permanently lost. The years that passed in seasons of struggle when you should have been building. The opportunities that closed before you could walk through them. The version of your life that was possible before something interrupted it and sent you down a road you did not choose. I know that grief. I know it lives in a specific place in you, not always loud, not always present, but available, ready to surface in the quiet moments when you let your guard down and allow yourself to think about the gap between the life you are living and the life you thought you would have by now. I want to speak directly into that grief today, not to dismiss it or to minimize it, but to speak truth over it. The gap is real. The loss was real. The years that were hard were genuinely hard, and the cost was genuinely significant, and I am not asking you to pretend otherwise. What I am asking is that you allow me to speak about what comes next, because what comes next is not defined by what was lost. What comes next is defined by what I am about to do. And what I am about to do is larger than what was taken. I want to talk to you about the concept of restoration, because I think it is often misunderstood in ways that limit what people expect from me. Restoration is not the same as returning to the exact state that existed before the loss. It is not about going back. It is about going forward into something that accounts for the loss and exceeds it. When I restore, I do not simply replace what was taken with an identical copy. I restore with interest. I restore with the accumulated weight of everything that was built in you through the hard season added to what I am bringing back. I restore in a way that makes the story of the loss become part of the power of the restoration, so that what you receive is not just what you had before, but what you had before plus what the journey through the loss produced in you plus what I was always planning to add at this stage of your story anyway. That is what restoration looks like when I am the one doing it. Not subtraction followed by replacement. Addition. Multiplication. A return so generous that the loss itself becomes a chapter that makes sense in the context of what follows it. I want to speak to the specific categories of loss that I know weigh heaviest on you, because I think naming them gives the restoration something concrete to land on. The first is time. I know the years feel like the most irretrievable loss. You can recover from financial setbacks, you can rebuild relationships, you can regain health, but time does not come back. The years that were spent in the wrong place, in the hard season, in the waiting room, those years cannot be unlived. And the enemy has used that truth to wound you deeply, to make you feel like the clock is running against you, like the years lost are permanent debt that no future blessing can fully repay. I want to speak directly to that wound. I am the God who redeems time, not who reverses it, not who pretends it did not pass, but who takes the years that were hard and builds something with them that produces fruit far beyond what the easy road would have yielded. What I am about to release into your life is not scaled down to account for the time you lost. It is full-sized. It is everything I intended from the beginning. And the timeline of your life, including the seasons that felt like waste, has been held in my hands the entire time. I am not behind on what I promised you, and you are not behind on the life I planned for you. The second category is opportunity. I know there were doors that closed that you believed were your moment, your breakthrough, your open window, and the closing of them felt like more than disappointment. It felt like the end of a particular possibility. I know you have sometimes done the math on what your life might look like now if that door had opened, and the math has been painful. I want to speak to those closed doors today. Not every closed door was a theft. Some of them were me, protecting you from something you could not see from where you were standing. But some of them were genuinely the enemy interfering with something I had set in motion. And for those, I want you to hear this. The opportunity that was stolen was not the only opportunity. It was not the one indispensable door that everything depended on. I have more doors. I have doors that are better suited to who you are now than that door was to who you were then. I have opportunities being prepared for the version of you that has been shaped by everything you have walked through since that door closed. And those opportunities are more aligned with your actual calling, more significant in their impact, and more prepared for your arrival than the ones that were taken would have been. The theft did not end the story of your opportunity. It delayed one chapter and made room for a better one. The third category is relationship. I know that some of the most significant losses in your life have been relational, people who were taken, connections that were broken, bonds that the enemy found a way to damage or destroy. I know that relational loss leaves a particular kind of mark, the kind that reshapes the inner landscape, that changes what feels safe and what feels possible, that leaves empty spaces where presence used to be. I want to speak to those empty spaces today. I am not restoring what was lost by bringing back the exact thing that was taken, because some of what was taken cannot and should not come back in its original form. And I know your heart well enough to know that not every broken relationship is one you would want fully restored. What I am restoring is the capacity for the kind of love and connection and belonging that the losses tried to take from you, the willingness to trust again, the openness to receive. The belief that relationship is still worth the risk even after the evidence suggests otherwise. And beyond the capacity, I am bringing people, the right people, the ones who carry what your story needs in its next chapter, the ones who will love you with a love that is worthy of you, the ones who will stay. I'm not done building the relational landscape of your life. The losses were not the final word on who will be in your story going forward. The fourth category is identity and confidence. I know that the hardest seasons did not only take things from your life, they took things from your sense of yourself. Confidence that was eroded, boldness that was silenced, certainty about your gifts and your calling that was replaced by doubt. The version of yourself that moved through the world with a certain assurance, that knew what it was made for and moved toward it without the constant friction of self-questioning. That version feels very far away from where you are now. And I want to speak to that specific loss today, because I think it is in some ways the most significant of all, because it is the loss that makes every other restoration harder to receive. If you do not believe you are someone worthy of restoration, the restoration itself becomes difficult to inhabit. So before I speak about everything else I am bringing back, I want to speak about this. I am restoring your sense of yourself. I am restoring the confidence that the hard seasons eroded. I am restoring the boldness that the enemy silenced. I am restoring the clarity about your calling that the doubt covered over. And I am restoring the joy of being you, the uncomplicated pleasure of moving through the world as someone who knows they are loved and known and made for something specific and good. That restoration is part of what is coming, and it is coming first, because everything else that I am bringing requires a heart that is open enough to receive it. Please know that every seed you plant in this mission grows into a torch that shines in someone else's darkness. Whether by buying a coffee, making a donation, or becoming a member of our community, your support does not go to a channel. Your actions are supporting a divine mission to save lost souls. But more than your support, we want your presence. When you head to our Daily Light of Christ community through the link in the description or the pinned comment, you are not just visiting a site. You are entering a family of like-minded believers who are standing together in expectation of the restoration God is bringing, who know what it means to have lost things and to trust the God who restores. This is a sanctuary where you can post your prayer requests, lift the burdens of others, and engage in daily discussions with people who speak the language of faith and who will stand with you in prayer when you do not have the strength to stand alone. Whether you are joining one of our membership tiers for deeper study, sowing a seed of faith, or simply joining our daily morning prayers, you are helping build a global altar of worship. Heaven moves through willing voices, but it grows through a community that stands together. Each gift you give reaches someone who is sitting right now in the middle of a loss, needing to hear that the God who restores is still at work. Your seed reaches them. Your presence changes things. Given it will be given to you, that is the promise that sustains this shared mission. Come with purpose. Join the conversation. Plant your seed in fertile ground. Let us open the heavens together. I want to go deeper into something that I think has been quietly blocking you from fully receiving the restoration I am describing. And I want to address it directly, because until it is addressed, it will continue to create resistance in you that limits what you are able to take in. It is the belief, held not always consciously but deeply, that you are somehow responsible for what was lost, that the losses in your life were at least partially caused by something deficient in you, something you did wrong or failed to do right, something about the way you approached the situations that invited the taking, that if you had been wiser, stronger, more discerning, more faithful, more consistent, less vulnerable, less trusting, the losses would not have happened or would not have been as significant. I know that belief is present in you, and I want to dismantle it today, not to remove all accountability from your story, because genuine growth requires honest reflection, but to separate the appropriate accountability from the false guilt that the enemy has layered over it. Some of what was lost because you made choices that could have gone differently, and I have already dealt with those choices. I have already covered them. The blood that was shed was sufficient for every mistake you made that contributed to a loss in your life, and I am not holding any of them against you. Accountability without condemnation, growth without shame. That is how I work. But more of what was lost for reasons that had nothing to do with your inadequacy. The enemy stole some things because you were a threat, and he wanted to slow you down. Life took some things because the world is broken, and broken things happen to people who did not deserve them. Seasons were hard because hardness is sometimes the road that leads to the destination, not because you were being punished. And people made choices that cost you things they had no right to take from you. In all of those situations, the loss was not your fault. You were not inadequate. You were not naive in a way that invited what happened. You were someone living faithfully in a world where things sometimes go wrong, and some of those things went wrong in your life, and the cost was real, and none of it was a verdict on your worth or your wisdom or your faithfulness. It was loss, and I am restoring it. I also want to speak to the fear that the restoration will come and then be taken again, the fear that has developed over years of hoping and losing, that has made your heart cautious about receiving anything good, because receiving it means it can be lost. That fear is understandable. It was built by real experience, and I'm not asking you to pretend it is not there or to push past it by sheer willpower. What I am asking is that you bring it to me and let me speak to it directly. Because the fear of losing the restoration is ultimately a fear about my faithfulness, a question underneath the surface about whether I can be trusted to give something and then protect it. And I want to answer that question with everything I am. I am trustworthy. What I restore, I protect. What I give as a gift of love to someone who has waited faithfully is not something I allow the enemy to simply take back once it arrives. I'm not a God who gives with one hand and allows it to be snatched away with the other. What I am bringing into your life in this season is coming with my protection on it. It is coming to stay. And the fear that it will be taken is not a prophecy. It is a wound, and that wound is part of what I am healing too. Let me also speak about the people in your life who are going to witness the restoration, because I think you need to know that what I am about to do is not going to be private. It is going to be visible. It is going to be the kind of turnaround that the people around you are going to notice, that is going to require an explanation that only points to me, that is going to be the testimony that opens conversations you have not been able to have yet, because your story was still in the middle of the hard chapter. The restoration is not just for you, though it is deeply personal and specifically designed for you. It is also for everyone whose faith is going to be strengthened by watching what I do in your story. It is for the person in your life who has been watching you hold on and wondering if the holding on is worth it, who is going to see the answer to that question in how your story turns. It is for the person who gave up on their own restoration because they stopped believing it was possible, who is going to have their belief rebuilt by watching yours arrive. Your restoration is a testimony that is already being assigned a reach beyond your own life. Receive it knowing that. Receive it not just as something for you, but as something I am entrusting to you to carry and to share and to let point to who I am and what I do. I want to speak now about how the restoration is going to come, because I think it matters not just that it is coming, but how it is going to arrive. I want you to be watching for it in the right places, receiving it when it shows up rather than missing it because you were looking in a different direction. Some of what I am restoring is going to come suddenly. There will be moments where a door opens so quickly, where a provision arrives so completely, where a connection forms so specifically that there is no natural explanation that does justice to what just happened. Those moments are coming. Be ready to receive them without immediately looking for the rational explanation, without talking yourself out of the miracle because it feels too good to be true. When something arrives that has the signature of what I promised, receive it. Receive it with open hands and an open heart and a gratitude that is not hedged by the fear that it will be taken away again. What I give as restoration, I give to last. It does not come with a hidden expiration date. It does not arrive as a test to see if you will trust it. It arrives as what I said it was. A restoration, permanent, real, specifically yours. Some of what I am restoring is going to come gradually, through a process that unfolds over a season rather than in a single dramatic moment. And I want you to be as attentive to the gradual as you are watching for the sudden. The restoration of your confidence is going to come through a series of small moments where you take a step and discover that you were more capable than you thought. The restoration of the relational landscape is going to come through a series of connections that build on each other over time, each one adding something to the picture of the belonging I am creating for you. The restoration of your sense of purpose is going to come through a series of encounters with the thing you were made for, each one a little clearer than the last, each one a little closer to the full expression. Watch for the gradual. Do not dismiss the small installments of restoration because they are not the whole thing yet. Each one is real. Each one is part of what I promised. And each one is building toward the fullness that is still coming. I also want to speak about the restoration of joy, because I think it is something you have been missing for longer than you fully realize. And I think its absence has cost you more than the other losses in some ways, because joy is what makes the living of life feel worth it. Not happiness, which comes and goes with circumstances, but the deep, settled, underneath everything kind of joy that is present even when the circumstances are hard, that makes difficulty bearable and ordinary moments beautiful, and the future something to move toward rather than brace against. That joy was yours once. It may have been a long time ago. It may have been so long that you have started to wonder whether it was ever really as real as it seemed in memory, whether you are romanticizing a version of yourself that was simply younger and less experienced with how hard life can be. I want to tell you that it was real, and I want to tell you that I am bringing it back, not the naive version that existed before the hard seasons. The deeper, more resilient version that knows what it has survived and chooses joy anyway, that has been through the fire and found me faithful and now has a foundation for joy that the early version never had. That joy is part of the restoration, and it is already on its way. I want to say something now about your role in the restoration, because this is not a passive process that happens to you while you wait. There are things I am asking you to do as the restoration unfolds, postures I am asking you to hold, steps I am asking you to take that will position you to receive what I am bringing fully rather than partially. The first is openness. I need you to hold your hands open for what I am bringing rather than keeping them closed around what you have lost. Grief over what was taken is appropriate, and I am not asking you to skip it, but grief that becomes a clenched fist, holding on to the loss so tightly that there is no room to receive anything new, will slow the restoration. Mourn what was taken, and then open your hands. The second is expectation. I need you to expect the restoration rather than be surprised by it, to live in a posture of anticipation rather than bracing. To move through your days with the quiet confidence of someone who has heard from God about what is coming and has decided to believe it. Expectation creates an atmosphere that the restoration can land in. Surprise is wonderful, but expectation is better. And the third is gratitude for what is already present, because gratitude is the soil that makes everything I plant grow fastest. Find the pieces of restoration that have already begun, however small, and receive them with genuine thankfulness. Let the small signs of what is coming be the fuel for the faith that holds on until the fullness arrives. I want to talk now about the Joel 2:25 promise, because it is the promise that underlies everything I am saying today, and I want you to understand its full weight. I will restore to you the years that the swarming locust has eaten. That promise was not spoken into a context of minor inconvenience or manageable setback. It was spoken into a context of devastation, of a landscape that had been stripped bare, of a people who looked at what remained of what they had built and could not see how recovery was possible given the extent of the damage. And into that context, I made a promise, not to partially restore, not to restore what was recoverable and leave the rest as a lesson, to restore the years, the time itself, the thing that seemed most irretrievable. I said I would restore it. And I said it without qualification and without a ceiling on the amount and without a condition that said this applies only if the damage was moderate. It applies to the full devastation. It applies to every stripped and barren place. It applies to the person who looks at their life and genuinely cannot see how what was taken could ever be replaced, let alone exceeded. It applies to you. That promise was in the Bible before your situation existed, and it has been waiting for your situation to call it forward. And I am calling it forward today, over your life, over every stripped place, over every year that was taken, over every dream that was eaten. I am saying to you what I said through the prophet, I will restore, and I mean all of it. I also want to speak to the timeline of the restoration one more time, because I know the question that is forming is not just whether it is coming, but when. And I want to be as honest with you about this as I can be while also holding the things that are not mine to fully reveal today. What I can tell you is that the restoration is not distant. It is not a promise for some far-off future that requires decades of more waiting. What I'm speaking about today is close. The conditions for it are being assembled right now, in this season, in the days you are currently living through. Some of what I am restoring is already in motion, and you will see the first signs of it sooner than you expect. Some of it will arrive in a cascade, one thing opening the way for the next thing, the restoration building on itself as each piece creates the conditions for the following piece to arrive. And some of it will come in a moment so sudden and so complete that the only word for it is miraculous. Be ready for all three. Watch for the small beginnings and receive them with the same faith you are saving for the dramatic arrival. Let the small signs build your expectation. And hold on with everything you have, because what is coming is worth it. I promise you that. What is coming is worth every day of the holding on. I want to close this section by speaking about what you are going to do with the restoration when it fully arrives, because I think this is something worth thinking about now, before it comes. Because there is a temptation, when restoration arrives after a long loss, to hold it so tightly and to protect it so anxiously that the very thing that was restored becomes a new source of fear rather than a source of freedom. The fear of losing it again can make the blessing feel fragile and make the receiving feel tentative rather than full. I want to release you from that in advance. When the restoration arrives, receive it freely. Hold it with open hands, not clenched fists. Let it be what it is, a gift from a God who loves you, given to be enjoyed and used and shared, not hoarded out of fear. Live generously from what I restore to you. Let the abundance I release become something that flows through your life and reaches the people around you, because that is always the intention behind my restoration. Not just to repair a private deficit, but to release a generosity that multiplies outward, that makes your life a source of blessing for others, that turns the story of your loss and restoration into a living testimony of what is possible when someone trusts me through the hard chapters and comes out the other side into everything I promised. That is who you are becoming. And that is the life the restoration is building toward. What I am about to do in your life will make the loss make sense. Not in the sense of explaining why it had to happen, because some things do not get that explanation on this side of eternity, but in the sense of producing a story that could not have been written any other way, that has a depth and a richness and a testimony embedded in it that the easier road would never have produced. The restoration is going to be your story, the whole story. The loss and the waiting and the holding on and the breakthrough and the fullness of what I bring. All of it together is going to be something that points unmistakably to who I am and what I do and how deeply I love the people who trust me through the hard chapters. That story is going to matter. It is going to reach people. It is going to be the word that lands in someone else's loss and says, "Hold on, God restores. I know because it happened to me." You are becoming that testimony, and the restoration that makes it complete is on its way. There is one more thing I need to say before we pray, and it is perhaps the most personal thing in this entire message. I want to speak about the piece of you that was lost, that you have mourned most quietly, the one you rarely mention, the one that does not have an obvious name, but that you know is missing, because you can feel its absence in the way a person feels the absence of something that used to be there and is not anymore. For some of you it is a lightness you used to carry that has been replaced by a heaviness you cannot fully shake. For some of you it is a spontaneity, a capacity for joy in the moment that has been replaced by a guardedness that watches for what might go wrong. For some of you it is a trust in people or in life itself that was broken by something specific and has not fully healed. For some of you it is simply the version of yourself that existed before the hardest season, the one that moved through the world with a confidence and an ease that the hard season took from you and that you have not been able to find your way back to. Whatever that unnamed thing is for you, I want you to know that I see it. I see the specific shape of the loss that is hardest to describe. I see the part of you that went quiet in the hard season and has not fully come back, and I want to speak directly to it today. I am restoring that too, the lightness, the trust, the ease, the version of you that existed before everything got so heavy. Not as a return to innocence, because you are not going back, you are going forward, and the you that emerges on the other side of this restoration will carry the wisdom of what you walked through. But the heaviness will lift, the guardedness will soften. The capacity for joy will return, deeper and more resilient than before, because it will be rooted in something that was tested and held rather than something that was simply never challenged. You are going to feel like yourself again, more yourself than you have felt in a long time. And the feeling, when it comes, is going to be worth every hard day that preceded it. I restore all things. That is who I am. And I am not finished with your story. I want to give you one final picture to carry with you today, one image that I hope will stay with you long after this message has ended, and that will speak to you again in the moments when the restoration feels far away and the losses feel loud. Think of a field after winter. Everything that was alive has gone quiet. The surface is bare and cold and gives no indication of what is underneath or what is coming. To look at it in the middle of winter is to see nothing. No movement, no color, no sign of life. But underneath the surface, something has been happening the entire time, something invisible but real, something that will not remain invisible for long. The roots have been deepening, the seeds have been taking hold, the life that looked absent has been gathering strength, and then spring comes, and the transformation is not gradual in the way that the preparation was gradual. It is sudden in the way that all arrivals are sudden, the way that one day there is nothing and then there is everything, the way that the waiting ends not with a slow fade into something better, but with a bursting through, a breaking open, a color and a fragrance, and an abundance that makes the bare winter field feel like it happened in another lifetime. That is the picture of where you are right now. It is still winter in some areas of your life. The surface is bare and the evidence is quiet and the restoration is not yet visible, but the roots have been going down, the life has been gathering, and the spring that is coming is not going to arrive quietly. It is going to arrive with everything. And when it does, you will know exactly who sent it. And I want to say this plainly before we go to prayer. The restoration I am speaking of is not contingent on you having done everything right between the loss and now. It is not a reward for perfect faithfulness during the hard season. It is not something you have to earn back by demonstrating sufficient recovery from the damage. It is a gift, given freely. Given because I love you, and because what was taken from you was taken unjustly, and because I am a God who does not leave injustice unremedied in the lives of those who belong to me. The restoration is coming because of who I am, not because of what you have done. Receive it on those terms, without guilt that you do not deserve it, without the anxiety of wondering if you have been faithful enough to qualify. You qualify because you are mine, and I am coming for everything that was taken from you. Hold on, my child. What was stolen is being reclaimed. What was lost is being recovered. What was broken is being rebuilt. And what I am bringing back is more than what was taken. It always is. That is who I am, and that is what I do for the ones I love. Let us pray together. Lord Jesus, I come to you right now on behalf of every heart that is hearing this message. You know, the one who has been carrying the weight of what was lost for so long that they have started to accept the loss as permanent. You know, the one who stopped expecting restoration because the waiting made expectation feel too costly. You know, the one who is sitting right now with something stirring in them, a small and fragile and almost frightened hope beginning to rise. Meet them there, Lord. Let the truth of your promise to restore land in them like something solid and unshakable. Speak directly into every specific loss, every stolen year, every broken relationship, every buried dream, every piece of identity and confidence and joy that the enemy took. And let them hear you say, clearly and personally and without ambiguity, I am bringing it back, all of it, with interest, and better than before. Give them the courage to hold their hands open. Give them the grace to expect rather than brace. And let them leave this moment with a hope that is stronger than when they arrived, rooted not in circumstances, but in the character of a God who has never once left a promise unfulfilled. In Jesus' name, Amen. If this message reached you today, type "Restore it all, Lord" in the comments, and share this with someone who needs to know that the story of their loss is not the end of their story. God restores. He always restores, and He is not finished yet.